If I search for plumber near me on Google, as an advertiser, I can show ads to people that searched for plumber near me. And that's intent-based advertising in an interruptive environment, which is not possible in any other medium.
Welcome to another edition of the NiceJob Podcast. If you like what you hear, please give this video a like and subscribe to get new content first. As always, these are just the highlights of our episode. For the full conversation, head to our podcast platforms. All right, let's see who our guest is today.
Hi, my name is Adam Arkfeld. If you're having difficulty in the Facebook ads platform, you should be investing your money in YouTube. YouTube is the most underutilized advertising platform in the digital marketing landscape.
My guest for this episode, we were able to connect, and even before we started recording, we talked about the variety of different things that he could kind of speak on, and he works, I'll say within a couple of different industries, but two of which for our NiceJob audience, one that we've dealt with a lot, and one some of our newer clients and customers and some new members of our community are in as well. Without further ado, allow me to introduce Adam Arkfeld, who's founder and president of Paracore, as well as Prevail Legal Marketing. So he's got you covered from a lot of different marketing perspectives, whether you're a law firm, it's Prevail Legal Marketing will get you, or Paracore, any sort of industry, especially your home service professionals, they certainly can help you out. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
John, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
So I think almost I'll dive in right sort of the beginning there, with the two businesses there. That's taking on a lot. So I'm sure you have a passion when it comes to advertising and marketing and things of that nature. Is there a moment where it kind of clicked from you, where you were kind of bit with that bug and you decided, you know what, this is something I want to study, grow, learn, and share with other people? When did you get that sort of enlightenment that going down the marketing and advertising route was a career path for you?
I didn't. I never got that enlightenment. I was actually in commercial real estate in 2008. And as everyone knows, the real estate market was destroyed. And a buddy of mine said, hey, do you want to help build websites? And I said, yeah, I got nothing better to do because I'm making no money here. And so Paracore was born in 2009. And we built websites for about 5 years. And then as I was in marketing a little bit more, I started liking paid media. And so we shifted just to paid advertising about 7 years ago. And that's been our exclusive focus. And that's Paracore. Paracore works with all types of industries, all types of businesses, home services, e-commerce. We do Facebook ads, Google ads, just paid advertising. And then about a year and a half ago, we launched Prevail because we saw a bit of a gap in that market where I think attorneys are really taken advantage of on the PPC side. You know, they're charged 25, 30% of ad spend, and the marketers aren't really accountable for the performance. If they don't do well, the attorney's the one that gets burned, not the marketer. So in that business, we do performance-based pay-per-click advertising where we guarantee a price per lead. And that way the attorney knows, hey, if these guys are terrible at marketing, at least I'm not paying more than this price per lead. So they can actually do their analysis up front. And it's not in hindsight, like how's the campaign doing? They can kind of project it early on. So there's a lot of benefits to that, but that's the high level.
And I think that backstory will resonate actually with a lot of our listeners because a couple of them made career shifts to do what they were doing now, or, was kind of faced with a situation where they started doing something and identified, as you said, people were taking advantage of this certain type of industry and stuff like that. So almost not necessarily just filling a need or solving a problem, but kind of having a purpose and a little bit of direction based on their experiences. And so you kind of teased it a little bit of almost the concept or the the discipline of like performance-based marketing. If someone's never heard that term, if it's brand new to them, how would you define that and maybe a little bit high level of how you implement it?
Yeah, performance-based marketing just basically means that the marketer is compensated based on the performance of the campaigns. So a lot of times people see that as buying leads. That is an example of performance-based marketing. If you're an attorney or home services company or solar company, a lot of those, mortgage broker, insurance, a lot of those companies buy leads, and that's more or less performance marketing, where a lead is generated and then the lead is purchased at a certain agreed upon price. The difference between that and retainer-based marketing is a marketer comes in and says, I'm going to charge you $2,000 to run your $10,000 advertising campaign. And it doesn't really matter what the results are going to be. I'm getting paid $2,000. Now, there's a place for both. Paracore is a retainer-based agency and Prevail is performance-based. The reason Paracore is retainer-based is because a lot of our campaigns are much more complex than just generating a lead, like a bankruptcy lead. We are running retargeting on LinkedIn. We're doing ebook downloads. We have YouTube campaigns. They're just much more sophisticated. To boil it down to a price per lead is virtually impossible. So Prevail does performance-based, where we say, listen, if you're going to spend $5,000 a month and you want, I'm just going to be using round numbers here, and you want some type of a lead, let's say a bankruptcy lead, and we say, okay, we're going to guarantee that you get 50 leads for $5,000 a month, which comes out to $100 per lead. So basically, we're saying we guarantee this performance, and if we under-deliver on the volume of leads, the next month you're going to pay us $3,500 if we only delivered 35. And if it costs us $120 a lead to generate, you're still going to pay us $100 because that's what we agreed upon, and it's our job to deliver on that lead price. And so it puts a lot of risk on the agency, and I think that's why most agencies won't do it, because we run campaigns periodically where we are losing money. And I don't mean losing money like we're not getting a fee. Like a lot of times agencies say, we'll run your campaign or you don't pay us. Like not only are we not getting paid, literally we're stroking a check to run that ad campaign. It's not a good place to be, but that is the benefit for the attorney of a performance-based marketing campaign.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about not a lot of agencies would do that sort of thing, though obviously on the other side of the equation, it seems like the exact sort of thing that you want. When you're looking, so you're doing the execution, your firm and your agencies and things like that. Within that, your options there, how do you go about determining the best sort of strategy, right? Are you just looking, because I would assume like per business, per competition area and things like that, there's obviously a couple different, metrics or other things you're really looking for, but is there kind of a baseline strategy of like, okay, well, we'll generally start with something like this, or is every case unique and on its own, and that's what kind of makes you able to do what you do, is that you're treating everything so individualistic?
Really the strategy for me almost always starts at customer intent, because the platforms that we're advertising in, and we advertise in social platforms and then search platforms. Search platforms means that someone is looking for something in particular and they have high intent to find it. So that typically means Google, Bing, which has like very little volume, but is still a search platform. And even Amazon. Amazon's a search platform, right? Like that's an e-commerce search platform. So when you have someone that's trying to fix a problem immediately, they need a bankruptcy attorney, they need their toilet fixed, they need an electrician, and they're hunting for that. That strategy typically means that they're doing a intent-based campaign, so search. Now, if you're selling something that's not a time-sensitive need, like maybe you're selling shoes and you're just trying to get in front of people, you're selling jewelry, you're selling a lifestyle, you're selling some sort of other benefit, that's low intent. Like, people may not be searching for that, but they could buy it at any time. And if they can buy it at any time, then you're looking at something like, Facebook, maybe LinkedIn, certain types of YouTube advertising. YouTube can either be low intent or high intent. There's ways to make it very high intent, which most people aren't aware of. But that's typically where we start, is the intent of the consumer, and then we develop the strategy from there.
And that seems to make perfect sense. And even some of our home search professionals might even need a little bit of both, right? So they provide a regular like maintenance service, which might not be a quick search intent sort of thing, but you want to start building a little familiarity, and you want to be seen and kind of be top of mind if it advances beyond that. But then also they have emergency services or one-off sort of services that would kind of play for both. Over the course of the past 2 years, the pandemic and a lot of those things, I'm always interested in someone in your position if you've seen any big trend shifts, or you've seen something that really has, I'll say, like drastically changed over time. One thing that we've noticed from the reputation marketing perspective is social proof has gotten even more important, right? It's exponentially, because just from almost the tongue-in-cheek sort of, you're seeing experts yell expert opinions even when they're not experts everywhere. And so people started looking closer within their communities and closer around them and really valuing that social proof. But from either a medium standpoint or a placement standpoint, have you noticed any dramatic changes or differences over the past 2 years or so?
I would say that the changes that we've seen are more technical than maybe like social, right? So, when you say reviews are important or have become more important, that's kind of like more of a social thing where people are looking for certain trust indicators, maybe in a little bit different way. And those trust indicators are just massive. I mean, whether in your ad copy or your landing pages, trust indicators are huge. But from a technical standpoint, in home services, legal, A lot of different verticals on Google. You have the local service ads, which are basically, so it's funny we're talking about performance marketing. Local service ads appear in the top of Google search, and it shows the person's head, and it says connect with this person, and you go and you click it. That's Google's version of performance-based marketing, because Google gets paid per phone call. So they have actually started entering into the performance-based marketing category, where before they were getting paid per click, and that's not performance. Now they're getting paid per lead. That has really affected the legal space and home services and other categories. So that's a huge one that has stolen a lot of traffic from owners, business owners and marketers, and has actually shifted more dollars to Google, which is a little bit rough. But the biggest impact by far is is Apple's iOS 14 update, where they stopped tracking Facebook's campaigns. And that has just, for a while we didn't see impact, but as of late, we've just been seeing more and more. And I think a lot of advertisers are pulling out of Facebook, us included. We're trying to diversify into YouTube. And so one thing that most people don't know about YouTube is that it's the second largest search engine in the world. Google gets 5 billion searches a day. YouTube gets 5 billion views a day. Every single view can have an ad in front of it, or most views can have an ad in front of it. So, however, getting into YouTube is very, very difficult. You have to create a video, write a script, has to be direct response. It's hard to convert. So, we're shifting a lot of our Facebook ads to YouTube as much as we can, and we're seeing a lot of YouTube traffic doing quite well. And honestly, if I could leave Facebook altogether, I probably would.
Well, it's funny from the advertising perspective, that definitely seems right on. It's what you talked about at the very top of kind of the social perspective is that's kind of what's the full complement, right? So if you're collecting reviews using this kind of social posts, it's free to post on Facebook, right? So if you're taking a review, posting it as a post, it's going to go there. If someone search your businesses, they get to your Facebook page, they'll see it there. But it might not be, despite the social traffic's there, it might not be the best place for the ad spend. And you talk about something like YouTube. YouTube is a very interesting landscape because you're trying to break through, right? And it's almost, you think of like old school cable flipping on the TV. It'd be like almost if every channel appeared at once and then you have to decide from there instead of kind of flipping through. That's kind of some of the impact that you get with YouTube. So is there a strategy within, because I'm not overly familiar with YouTube advertising in general, but I think some people might think about it, all right, well, if I'm making an ad for YouTube, I'm creating an ad, am I just like throwing it on this highway of entertainment and see where it goes, or can I really craft it? Because I think some people with Facebook retargeting and stuff like that, obviously before the updates, they really felt they were able to hone in and find their audience. Is that still possible on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about YouTube for hours, so I'll try and keep it fairly short because YouTube is like this unknown channel that most people, they don't understand the power of it. So YouTube is owned by Google, right? So the problem with Facebook right now and Apple is that they're two separate companies. There's a privacy concern. And so basically Apple put up this wall between Facebook's tracking and their operating system. So Facebook's ability to capture people's interests has now been greatly diminished. So that's affecting their performance. On YouTube, YouTube's owned by Google. So, and like, I don't know what percentage of websites have Google Analytics installed, but it's very high. So basically Google has all this information on people. And yes, in Google search, like everyone's familiar with that, very easy to create a campaign and load it up. But all of those interest categories and behaviors are now brought into YouTube, and it's a closed ecosystem. So all of that information that Google has can be used in YouTube targeting, down to the strategy of if I search for plumber near me on Google, as an advertiser, I can show ads to people that searched for plumber near me. And that's intent-based advertising in an interruptive environment, which is not possible in any other medium. Yeah. Literally, there's no other medium in digital advertising where you can show someone an interrupted ad based on an intent-based search that they did somewhere else in Google. Yeah. So it's very powerful, and most people aren't familiar with that strategy. They think it's kind of like Facebook, where and so when you hear marketers say, "Oh, YouTube is good for brand awareness," it just means they don't know how to run YouTube ads. If anyone ever tells you that, it means they don't know how to run YouTube ads, because it is a lead gen platform that does incredibly well, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, I think almost the definition there is that if you have a YouTube channel, so you're putting out content, you probably get a good amount of brand awareness from there. But I agree with you. As an advertising platform, YouTube seems a bit ripe at the moment as well. Because that's the other thing we talk about that change over the past 2 years is how many people got way more tech savvy, right? I can tell you now, getting my my mom and dad on Zoom and them being super fluent, and including my mom throwing filters on her face and stuff like that. That tech savvy audience is there, and we're starting to see a little bit of that kind of shift. So, if you want to start a YouTube, I want to start advertising on YouTube. You talked about, you have to create a certain style of content because obviously it's video and something like that. Is there, your high level step one, your template, or, start with a shorter length, longer length? Like, what should they be looking for? If someone goes, you know what, Adam, you convinced me. I'm going to call you and just help do with it. But just before I call you, take advantage of your services. What should I plan to expect to hear as a strategy I'm going to implement?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. That's an excellent question because the mindset around YouTube is completely different than what most people think with video advertising. So what most people do on YouTube is they take their TV commercial that they did for TV and they take and they say, okay, advertising agency that maybe knows how to run ads, maybe doesn't, YouTube ads. They say, will you put this on YouTube? But when you're on YouTube, you mentioned, older generations kind of acclimating to YouTube, which is true, but anyone under 35 or so, I'm 40, I'm like just on the cusp. They're very accustomed to YouTube. So that's just it's just growing more, but you create videos that, are conversational and talk to the consumer, not just blast information at them. So you literally will say, I recommend having like a talking head, a spokesperson. You can hire these people on Fiverr for a couple $100 to record a script. They just say, hey, are you having this problem? They can't skip the video for 5 seconds. So you want to hook them in the first 5 seconds. If you can get them hooked in the first 5 seconds, then you're not actually charged for the video unless they watch it for 30. So between 6 seconds and 30 seconds, then you identify, is this person watching? Do I solve their problem? So you get very direct and say, hey, here's a pain point. Are you having this problem? And you want them to click skip if they're not your audience, because then you don't pay for it, right? So you're saying, hey, let's do like legal, for example, bankruptcy. It's like, well, bankruptcy is hard because it's a financial one, but let's say plumbing. Like, hey, are you having issues with your plumbing, blah, blah, blah. And then you want them to skip if within 30 seconds, they're not the right fit. And then you just say, hey, you know what, we're offering a discount. Plumbing's probably not the best example either because of the intent, but hey, we're offering a discount, where here's a person talking about how great their experience was, blah, 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 social proof. We've been in the Valley this long, and click the link below. And because you watch this video, you're going to get 15% off your service call. And you talk to them and you tell them what to do. You tell them to click the link. You tell them you're going to have an offer. And it's just more of a direct conversational experience rather than, hey, we're Joe's plumbing shop. We do this. We've been here. We do. It's like you're literally talking to them, telling them what to do. And I think that's really the most important distinction between YouTube and TV or whatever else you're using videos for, is that you're directing them and talking to the audience. You're not doing just a commercial where you're just advertising your business.
Yeah, so my background, I'm actually a radio, TV, film major, which I like to joke is just 3 nouns, doesn't say what I can do with those things. But it almost reminds me of the actual true definition of broadcasting, right? Which is broadcasting to many. And so while your ad is definitely doing that because of its distribution, the content, as you're saying, like it's got to almost be a 1-to-1, right? So again, if they can identify, I love that you pointed it out, like if they skip it, you're not going to get charged for that. But you have that 5 seconds to either be like, hey, this is why you should skip, or this is why you don't want to skip. And it seems a little, might to some seem more of an anxious moment, but I never really thought about that. If they're not your target and they skip, then that's, you're no worse for wear in that regard. But then once they get past that point, you really want to drive them towards those sort of next steps. And you even talk about, maybe it's not you can do the discount because you have a timing on that, but if you have, guarantees that continue throughout, satisfaction guarantees, we make it right guarantees, something like that. Or even a little bit to identify one particular problem. Sometimes, especially home service professionals, is like, well, I can fix 19 different things. You're like, okay, well, maybe focus on the one, right? Get the people that need the one, and then we'll see how the ball rolls from there. The question that might be popping in some people's minds, though, when they think of YouTube and they think about the broad sentence, is that if I'm a very small, localized company, how can I really ensure that my ad's not being shown or spent from someone way upstate or somewhere actually, across the country or something like that. So if you have a restricted service area, could you still use a platform like YouTube?
Yeah. I mean, all the platforms have, geographic targeting where you can make sure that it's shown in their area. And that's pretty easy to do. And the nice thing about YouTube is typically the prices that we see like per view, where someone's actually watched for 30 seconds, might be anywhere between 10 and 30 cents a view. Not a lot. And then the cost per click, depending on the quality of the ad and the targeting, could be, somewhere between $2 and $5 per click. And we've seen that for, really competitive industries where they might be 20 or 30 bucks a click on Google, and you're getting a $3 click on YouTube. Now, they tend to convert at a little bit lower percent than Google. However, sometimes the cost per lead can be a good 30, 40, 50% less than Google. So you can definitely keep the geo-targeted, and they do really quite well. Now, the reason, you said something earlier that stuck with me. You said, YouTube's kind of like ripe for the taking. And it is, and it will be for a long time. And the reason is because the barrier to entry is so high. If you go to Google Ads and you want to create an ad, I can create a campaign in like 10 minutes. It's like, I know the settings, boom, knock it out, keywords, ad copy, landing page, I'm done. It's text-based. Facebook, I can go and I can use stock imagery and I can knock that out in 30 minutes. YouTube, you got to write a script or be really good at filming a video on the fly, film the video, edit the video, get it up. The barrier to entry to create a good YouTube video is super high. It's high. It's not easy. This is like probably the hardest platform to advertise in, but that is actually what gives it the most opportunity. And that's why a cost per click is a couple bucks and a cost per view is 20 cents, because there's 5 billion impressions a day versus 5 billion searches a day. And the barrier to entry is so much higher than Google. So the costs are way lower.
Yeah. And I like the way you kind of describe that though, because it is a high barrier, but it is also something that if you dedicate some time, some resources, and some spend to, you can almost, I don't say you can kind of batch, but you kind of can, right? So if you want to go out, you hire a videographer that's going to be able to set you up a nice like shooting space, and you go there, you could shoot a couple 30 second, 15 second, like a couple different ads, then have that kind of in your stable to put out and experiment and kind of see what works. And sometimes, when people think about, I'll just go to, this image generator, and as you say, like stock image, kind of throw up on Facebook and stuff like that, is sometimes a lot of those, I think, get staler earlier than perhaps a video, because from the viewer standpoint, they understand what went into it. They understood that you had to shoot, edit, and kind of direct. They might not know all the ins and outs. They might not know that you had to get someone to color correct it because your tan came out a little weird, and some of the things like that. But there's kind of almost that respect on both sides of it. And so I'm really glad you kind of laid that out for it and the way that you did it. Our audience likes that answer, or loves the other stuff you said, or just wants to know more about you or kind of what you're doing. Where should we direct them towards? Yeah,
Paracore is my first agency, and then that's paracore.com. And then Prevail Legal Marketing, that's my my legal marketing agency. That's growwithprevail.com. And I'm personally very active on LinkedIn. So if you just search for Adam Arkfeld, I love connecting on LinkedIn, and that's where I tend to post a lot of content myself. So yeah.
And whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to our audio only version of the episode, we'll have some links in the description or the show notes. So we'll make it nice and easy for you. And I'm pretty sure I probably popped it on the screen as well too. So hopefully people will get in touch with you. Adam, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us here on the NiceJob Podcast, and hopefully we'll be talking again soon.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for checking out the video. Remember, you can listen to the full episode of our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Buzzsprout, or wherever you get your podcasts. Here on YouTube, I want to invite you to subscribe by clicking right there, or you can check out 2 other videos. One, our most recent podcast, and the other to learn a little bit more about NiceJob. So click one of those things, and I can go home.